Our guest this episode is Donna Forsdyke. She is the Director of Agile and Project Delivery at Wyser. How are you doing this morning?
I'm very well, thank you, Melissa. How are you?
I'm doing great. You're calling in all the way from London, is that right?
Well, from the southwest of the UK, yes.
Got it. So at the beginning of each of these, we want to learn a little bit more about you. And looking at your background on LinkedIn, you have a very long history of experience. But what I thought was noticeable is majority of your career, you've been on what we call the buy side. So you've been on the side of the industry or the company where you will end up working with suppliers and vendors and using their services and products. But recently you shifted over to the sell side, which is Wyser. And on top of that, this company, and correct me if is this considered a startup?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
We're just about 2 years old.
So I'd like to understand a little bit more about your journey and why the shift, but also how everything that you've learned over your long career has brought you to where you are today.
Yeah, sure, no problem at all. So as you say, I've had a long career. I've been very lucky. I say lucky. My first company I spent 27 years at, and it really set me in very good stead for getting a wide breadth of experience and knowledge. In the time I was in that company, I think I had about 13 jobs. So that's not bad, a job every couple of years, and continually advancing and expanding the exposure and the knowledge that I was gaining. I started off as a young girl, not really having much in the way of ambition, but I kind of fell into IT, fell into a very technical role,
Mhm.
which I loved. And at the time, that really was motivational for me. And then, as time goes by and you develop and you start to sort of see other people in action and think, that's something I'd quite like to do. That's something I think that when I, as I progress in my career, I definitely want to have a go at doing that. So I finally left the techie space, um, which I'd absolutely loved for years and years, and decided to step up, if you like, and start doing a little bit of talking to our clients. Were all internal. So talking to the clients, understanding what they want, and then maybe passing over to somebody else to actually deliver. Um, and what the final role that I moved into after doing all of those technical roles was project management, which uh, for years had not interested me because you're not getting your hands dirty, not actually delivering a thing, but became much more appealing over time as as your technical skills get a little bit diluted, or you are less interested in that technical side of things. Delivering the technical things to the wider business became a very exciting opportunity. So I became a project manager and a program manager, and then I moved on from that company into another company where I also did project and program management, and it was where I met the person who hired me at Wyser.
Mhm.
We became very good friends, good colleagues. I found him quite inspirational, and he was someone with lots of energy, and just really went at things with 110%, and we clicked. We got on really well, and we always had some incredible conversations. And he would guide me if I was unsure about what to do, where to go, how to approach something. And he approached me
Mhm.
and said, I'd like you to come and work for me. I'm trying to start up a business. Is it, would you be interested? And I was very blasé about it and thought, well, yeah, come and talk to me when you know what you're doing. Um, and thought, that's it. I'll never hear from him again. And lo and behold, I did. He rang me up one day and said, right, I think we're ready for someone of your expertise to come and join. Um, you know, would you like to? Is that something that would interest you? And I said, "Oh," initially I thought, oh my gosh, this is so different to everything else I've ever done. As you
Hmm.
pointed out, it's, very much about delivering to an external client now, um, and modeling solutions, etc. And I did my usual, oh no, I couldn't, I'll be rubbish. And I stepped back and thought, no, no, what I'm doing now is steady, and that's the right thing to do.
Hmm.
Um, and then my husband encouraged me and said, "Well, I think I think you'd quite enjoy it." And I thought, if I don't do this now, I will never do it. And the more I learned about what the company was doing,
Hmm.
what their aspirations were, the more I got excited about the opportunity to get into something, um, right at the beginning, where you can shape it and influence it, and you know start to share your opinions and passions
Hmm.
and mold the company into something that you'd be proud of. And it was at that point I thought, yes, this is for me. This is what I want to do.
Wow. That's a great segue into the company itself. I'm going to read to you what it says about the company on the website, because there's some language in here that I don't fully quite get, and I don't know if that's a U.S. thing versus a Europe thing. But it says Wyser is an AI-enabled, case-focused technology solution for you to assess cases effectively, process, route them through your organization, and deliver an optimum customer experience.
Yeah.
And it continues with our suite of AI-led services for complex customer cases, process data, improve case management, customer-centric, repetitive tasks. Could you start a little bit with an overview of Wyser, but maybe go in to explain a little bit more about cases, the word case, and what
Yeah,
that means? Yeah.
absolutely. So the two gentlemen that started up the business, they had an aspiration to get involved in an area where there was very little in the way of innovation taking place.
Hmm.
So when we refer to cases, we're thinking of um, tribunal type cases, cases where people are advising and giving solutions and helping people out. They tend to be quite cumbersome processes, very repetitive, and haven't always enjoyed the investment that maybe a private company would have enjoyed. And so they had an aspiration to be able to get in there and help those types of companies. Um, and we are at the moment doing exactly that. So when we talk about cases, this is somebody ringing a body of people. It could be a formal organisation or something less known, and wanting to discuss a situation, a case that they're interested in raising. Quite often, it's employment related.
Hmm.
Not always, though. It can be related to anything. And what we want to try and do is get ourselves embedded into helping those processes be slicker, so that we're maximizing the opportunity for the person helping the client or the case holder is has optimum opportunity to give them genuine advice, genuinely help them, rather than worrying about filling in the systems and ensuring that they've entered the data correctly. All those sorts of things that most jobs have to do. You need to record that data somewhere to be able to help and provide the right kind of assistance. But it can be very time consuming, very manual, particularly in these types of organizations. Um, and so we know we can help them to automate those types of processes. And that's pretty much what we're doing, and why we exist.
Can you give me an example, like you don't have to talk specifically about a company or what you're currently doing, but just what's a real world example that this would apply to?
So a real world example might be, and I'll talk. I probably won't use their name, but I'll talk about
Mhm.
something we're doing at the moment. Is where I'm an employee. I feel I've been treated badly. I feel like somehow I might have a case against my company for the way they've treated me.
Mhm,
And I would contact this body of people, and I think there are a number of them,
mhm,
and say, let me talk through my scenario. I do feel like possibly I've got a case against the company, and the they would help them to understand whether or not they had a case. If they did, what their likelihood is of that case actually holding water,
mhm.
and what would be the best next steps for them as an individual to protect themselves, but also still hold the company accountable for what's happened.
Would it be safe to say that at the moment, the Wyser is really focused more on the HR side of the organization? Because in
Um,
my head, I have a much broader theory of what this means, which is why I'm kind of drilling into the details here.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily HR. We're
Mhm,
talking. So a few things that we're doing is about processing data in the most intelligent way to make full use of it without someone having to manually look at that data.
right.
So it might be. So in one case, we're using data to um, divert a case to the person who's best placed to deal with it, based on what the problem is, etc., and the person who's got the most capacity to deal with that.
Mhm,
So we're doing that in one area. In another area, we're looking to collect information about people who've got problems of all kinds. So citizens advice, you might call it. And they'll go into an office or call them up and say, I've got this situation, I'm in this predicament. And they're quite often manned by volunteers or
mhm,
part-time people, and those people don't want to be spending all day keying stuff into a computer. The reason they're there is they want to help people,
mhm.
and so we effectively use artificial intelligence in the background to capture the raw data to get it into the system for them.
So then, because I see the word customer, so this could be an external complaint, whether it was at a distribution facility or a trucker who has an issue. I mean, this really has a broad range, is what I'm hearing. Yeah.
Yes, a
Okay.
very broad range.
Okay.
Yeah,
So okay, I am on the same page. So,
good.
and I think all of our listeners are now on the same page. So then let's pivot to data. When we talk about companies with AI technologies, and specifically when we talk about this exponential influx of startups and small businesses that are now able to utilize these technologies, oftentimes they're focused on solving a problem. So, what
Mhm.
specifically was the problem that this company has evolved into resolving?
I think the problem is to stop making capturing crucial data so cumbersome,
Hmm.
and subject to error. So capturing that information real time from source, and then processing that data to pull out the key information.
Hmm.
It allows us to much more accurately capture that raw data, but also it takes the burden off the person who, you know, is managing that case or is talking to that person, so
Hmm.
they don't have to be worrying about all of that information and capturing it accurately, because we're doing it for them. And that's kind of where we see being able to help businesses to
Hmm.
streamline the way they do business, so that they're getting the absolute value out of their employees, and the employees are getting a better job satisfaction because they're doing the bit they love, not all the admin that goes with doing the bit that they love.
Right. So if they're not performing manual data entry, then the capture process is it's what I think I'm hearing is the capturing process is someone calling in or talking over a recorded line, and you're taking that voice information and
So
then
it's,
yeah.
yeah, voice information is what we're looking at. We're
Mhm.
currently developing a solution that does exactly that.
Perfect.
Um, I'm not a techie anymore, so
No,
I
no,
can't
you're
really
good.
go into
Yeah.
lots of detail. But yeah, that's what we're looking at,
Okay.
is that it real time, it's hearing the conversation and converting that into a capture.
So that's a lot of data.
That
When
is a
you
lot of
think about,
data.
yeah. So that's a lot of data, which, not only it sounds like you're using the AI technologies to capture the vocal responses of an individual who's got some type of issue that needs to be resolved, but
Mhm.
also I would suspect that you're also using some type of AI technology on the data itself to be able to highlight and synthesize and find patterns in what they're
Yeah,
saying in order to raise them to route them to the right person or raise them into a type of
yeah.
escalation. Okay.
There's definitely learning going on in the background there
Hmm.
that's learning, um, particularly if we capture information and then that person will always, we would never capture information and submit it without the person who was there and genuinely part of the conversation
Hmm.
being able to check it out and say, yeah, I'm happy with that,
Yeah.
and click and submit it. And so the technology is always learning. It's learning from the corrections that are being made
Hmm.
by the end user, but it's learning when it starts to see patterns, etc. And that's really where the value is, because when it starts to see trends, it can adapt accordingly, which I think is hugely powerful and
Yeah.
very exciting. Um, but I do think it frightens people. I think there are people out there who think, what is this? Is it wizardry, or what on earth is it? And learning what I've learned in the time that I've been in Wiser, it's absolutely not anything people should be concerned about. It actually is bringing, I think, um, a lot of benefits, to us all, but also to workforces who spend less time doing the more monotonous side of their roles, and they get
Hmm.
to do the bit that's really interesting.
I so as I'm listening here, I'm kind of playing this in my head, and what I see, if I'm that individual who's listening, and if without this kind of technology, I would need to manually type as the person's talking. And I could easily see, oh, I don't want to ask that person to repeat themselves because they're very upset, but I didn't quite catch all of it, or I thought I caught it, but then in reality, the most important piece that was going to make the difference, I just ended up skipping over because as I was typing, didn't think it was important. So now this really comes to how we're mitigating bias, that
Mhm.
social bias of the individual who's typing, simply because either A, they can't type that fast,
Yeah,
or B,
absolutely.
they want to be sensitive to the individual and not ask them to keep repeating themselves because maybe they're a slow typer. There's also, I think, some cultural challenges in if you've outsourced this kind of typing capability, and you've got that either vocal conversation that they're just not quite understanding you. No, I actually I have my head is spinning. I see a world of value, but I think what I'm recognizing is that it's also reducing that bias, and I didn't
Yeah,
quite grasp that until having this conversation with you in more depth. Yeah.
yeah. And that's the nice thing about machine learning as opposed to human beings, is they don't have that unconscious bias. They are dealing with the facts. I'm talking about them like they're a person, but that software is dealing with exactly what's in front of them.
Hmm.
There is nothing else influencing that. And that's a good thing. We need more of that, because, as much as we like to think none of us have any bias, we do.
Hmm.
We just are maybe, well, as the word says, not conscious of it. And machines, they simply don't have it. So it can only be a good thing.
Hmm. Now you said to the startup. So Wiser, how long has Wiser been around?
2 years.
2 years. Were you guys working on this technology before you brought this product out into the market?
So I wasn't, but I know the two co-founders were
Hmm.
talking about this before the business was started.
Hmm.
Um, they had already started to grasp and understand the possibilities,
Hmm.
and it's still relatively new. Um, and they, to be fair to them, they had more vision than I have. That's not my area of expertise really. My area of expertise is delivering,
Hmm.
getting this stuff to the client. So, but yeah, they were definitely talking about it. It was that really switched them on and said, you know what, there's an opportunity here, and I think we could really make a difference.
Hmm.
And in the time I've been involved, yeah, there's a lot of need for this type of help that we
Hmm.
can give to people and give to clients. So it's very exciting at the moment.
No, I'm always excited about this topic. Just the amount of, and it's going back to kind of what you've highlighted before is we had this data before. We just either didn't capture all of it, or we didn't know what we were capturing, or we didn't know what was the right thing to capture. And now with these types of technologies, we're able to truly harness the power of data that
Mhm.
we've never been able to really tap into until now. So I'm
Yeah,
I'm hugely a fan of.
yeah. Well, and there's such a lot of power in the way that this data is captured, and
Mhm.
the way the learning takes place, that y- trends that could potentially have passed us all by because of the way the data was captured. Or we've all seen companies that have got large groups of people who spend time looking at data, looking for trends, etc. And here we have capability that's able to do that really quickly and um, you know reliably and repetitively.
Mhm.
um, and as soon as you start to see those trends in whatever your data is, you have the power to adapt quickly and make the necessary changes for the better or for improvement, whatever that might be. But data is just so powerful.
Mhm. So if we focus more on your role, so your
Mhm.
role is, you mentioned earlier, your role is delivering this, product and service. When you're
Yeah.
out there talking to your clients, which are now on the buy side, so you're selling the service and product to them. One of the things that we often learn with the AI technologies is how much or how little, once the data is being collected, that it needs to be validated and mandated, validated and corrected. And I think what I heard from you earlier is once the data is collected, you are asking the whoever, I'm just say customer service representative, to look and see and make sure that that everything's there. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
So, and that's just one area we're working on at the moment. But it will, we would never be naive enough to assume that the machine captured everything
Hmm.
perfectly. You always need that human eye to just say, yeah, that was the crux of the conversation we had, and it's accurately captured. um, Over time, who knows? That may
Hmm.
not be required, but it's still very early days.
Right.
But it's so much better than that person having to sit half an hour typing the data in. All they have to do is scan it and go, yeah, I'm happy with that, hit the button, and it's submitted.
Are you
So yeah.
finding that they're wanting to add more content to what was already documented?
Um, I can't say for sure at the
Mhm.
moment because that particular element is still being developed and
Yep.
trialed. But you know, the opportunity is there should it need to be done.
Right.
Um, we just don't know right now. We have to need to go through that trial phase and understand quite how powerful and useful it is in reality.
Hmm.
But it's looking very exciting.
How many projects have you, I know that you've got at least a team, but how many projects have you been currently working on since you've been with Wyser?
Oh, probably 5. I've only been
Mhm.
there since December, so
Mhm.
probably 5. One we're just close to delivery now,
Right.
and then some are in the innovation stage, so we're still sort of designing
Mhm.
and. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of work coming our way to, and not all of it, becomes a thing to be
Mhm.
delivered.
Right.
But there's an appetite for people to understand more about what Wiser can do for them.
I asked this because you mentioned earlier that, while this is exciting, some people may look at this, from a very skeptical lens, not necessarily
Hmm.
a negative lens, but maybe a more skeptical lens. And as you're working with these individuals, I'm suspecting that these individuals somehow came to you because of they heard of what this technology can do. Are you finding that as you work with them, th- there's that excitement still, or they really get it, or are you having to really explain to them? I'm curious what your perspectives are.
So what I've seen is people are generally very excited.
Hmm.
They don't generally claim to get it, but they understand um, the possibilities.
Hmm.
So there is an excitement out there to get to know what AI is all about. How does it work at a high level?
Right.
That's all I discuss at a high level, not the nuts and bolts. Um, as I said earlier, some people are scared of it.
Hmm.
Some people are worried about the impact of it. But generally, the people that come to us, they have a problem that they think we might be
Hmm.
able to help them with using the tools that we have.
What would be some of the things that folks would be worried about?
Um, I think there's this age-old worry of, the machines are taking over the world, they're going
Ah.
to do all of our jobs, all of
Hmm.
that sort of stuff that's been around for a very long time. And I started out on an IBM mainframe, and these sorts of worries were around then. Computers are going to take over everybody's jobs, and
Hmm.
of course, that hasn't happened. But I think, yeah, people are worried that technology is getting cleverer and cleverer and
Hmm.
much more intelligent. Um, but you'll never substitute the reality of a human being and their skills and perception with software.
Right.
Um, and I think people don't need to be as skeptical as they are. I think most people genuinely do see the opportunity as opposed to the sort of the negative side
Hmm.
of what they might imagine that AI is all about.
This has been very good because it's really highlighted the power of AI technologies and the power that we're able to do with data that we didn't do before. But I think we've just pivoted into there's still some nuances that we're not quite there yet. And you've mentioned that lingering human feeling that we
Yeah.
want to also capture.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, human beings just, eh, one thing that technology is, it
Hmm.
can't be empathetic.
Hmm.
Whereas human beings, that comes much more natural to us. In the grand scheme of things, is that important information? Not always. It
Hmm.
really depends on the scenario. Sometimes, it's the hard facts that's the crucial bit. It's the bit that's worth its weight in gold. It's the bit that's going to make what happens next
Hmm.
of the best quality. Um, but we can't just dismiss the human side of the types of things that we're getting involved in.
Quite brilliant. Thank you so much. As we wrap up today, any lessons learned or leave behinds that you'd like to share?
Um, well, not particularly in relation to the technology, you know, technology is always powerful, and I've seen it change and adapt and improve, and it never ceases to blow my mind how much technology it can do, and how fast it progresses. I think, you know, for me, who somebody who has a passion for people, and you know, I really enjoy interactions with people and understanding people, and you know that really motivates me as well, which is, you know, a complete different side of things to
Hmm.
technology. Is, you know, never dismiss how important people still are. You know, they still have that value add. AI is quite clinical, machine learning, etc. It is quite clinical, very powerful, but not as powerful as people.
I think that's the perfect takeaway. Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Donna, for stopping by today.
No problem. Thank you very much.